What is up? Hope y'all doing well. Probably like a cigarette pack, but it's actually gum. All right, but today we're gonna talk about sexual discipline. And make sure that I'm live on everything. We can get started. All right, cool. We're gonna talk about sexual discipline today. I'm gonna talk a little bit about retention. We're just gonna really talk about the desires that you have. When you have something that you're trying to accomplish, this is a sacred desire. Your desire is holy. It's placed in your mind by the Most High. What good is it to gain that desire and then lose it all because you can't control your lust? What's up? What's up, man? All right. So the two quotes, the two things we're going to really talk about. Number one, how many men have fallen, not because of an enemy outside of them, but because they could not conquer the lust that devoured them from within. Number one. Number two, James 1:12. Blessed is the man who remains steadfast under trial, for when he has stood the test, he will receive the crown of life. And we can talk about this from many different ways. We can talk about this from a manifestation perspective, but we can also talk about this just from a discipline perspective. If I want to get the things that I desire, I'm going to have to go through some types of tests to get them. All right. Now, can I hold up through those tests, or will I fall? Okay, so the monk and the warrior, guardians of the sacred fire. Okay, the conquest of the world means nothing if a man has not first conquered himself. Let's not act like being a man is a cakewalk, right? We are taught to provide for everyone besides ourselves. Okay, when you think of, let's really talk about this, all right? When most people define their definition of a good man, what do they say? They're going to list out all the attributes of someone that serves them. A man does this for me, provides this for me, right? A man speaks like this. People will look at men for what we can receive, what they can receive from you, right? And so if you go through life just putting your sense of self-worth, your sense of self-value, and what you can provide for others, you're going to lead yourself down a very destructive path. Okay. And now also, that's number one. But number two, the other issue that we're going to talk about is that if you have these vices that are bothering you behind closed doors, you can set your sights on building a kingdom, building an empire. But if you do not conquer those vices, they can come back to bite you later on. All right. So those are the two things that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about what your actual value is, right? Because throughout history, right, when we talk about monks, whether we talk about samurais, whether we talk about civilizations throughout history, men were taught to do things. Men were taught to meditate, right? Men were taught to go within. But within these last, couple thousand years, things have changed, right? All of our focus is on the external world. What we can build out there, what we can provide for people, right? And so there's a lot of men that are walking around that are not conquering themselves in the process of trying to gain the world. And this is what this verse refers to, right? What good is it to gain the world and lose your soul, right? What good is it for me to gain everything that I want, but my sexuality, right? My lust takes me down. What good is it if you gained everything, that all of a sudden now your lust is the thing that takes you down, okay? So Proverbs 16:32, better a patient man than a warrior, a man who controls his temper than one who takes a city. What does that mean? Better a patient man than a warrior, what? I want you to think about this, right? How do you feel about people carrying around firearms with no kind of emotional restraint? When you think of that type of person, the type of person that carries around a firearm but cannot control their reactions, this is not the type of person that you want to cross paths with. Not because they're rational, not because you may do something wrong to them, but if they cannot control their reactions, this is a very dangerous person, right? I would rather a patient man than just a mindless, quote unquote, warrior, right? A man who controls his temper rather than one who takes a city, right? Two different men. The man that controls his temper, he can still be a warrior. He's actually the better warrior, right? The best fighters probably fight less frequently, right? The wiser you are, right? You don't go out and try and need to prove your strength, all right? So you've been lied to, right? Taught that masculinity was either brute force or passive indulgence. But the ancients knew better. The greatest men were not just warriors of the blade. They were monks of the mind, guardians of a sacred fire burning within them. When we talk about masculinity in this time, we start to look back. We always talk about the warrior aspect of masculinity, but we don't talk about the balance, right? Because being a man is balance. What is the difference between a man who has the emotional restraint to protect his family in danger versus a man who is just violent for no reason, right? Within you, you're gonna have this capacity for violence. And within you, you have testosterone, a lot of it, right? So you have a capacity for violence. Like you have a desire to sleep with a lot of women. This is an innate desire within you. This is not something to suppress, right? Neither is your capacity for violence something to suppress. But a man who cannot control his capacity for violence becomes a tyrant, right? A man who cannot control his sexual desires can destroy his family, can lose his family, can lose his career, can lose money, opportunities. All these things can happen if you are not a man who shows restraint. So we tend to want to talk in these polarities and say, okay, well, shoot, back in the day we were warriors. And now even when we first awaken on this spiritual path and we start going down this journey, what do you see? Is that a lot of the spiritual path tends to be very feminine, very love and light and sit in meditation, and everything is positive and bliss and happiness. But there has to be balance. All that bliss and happiness, right? That does not come into play when someone is threatening your family. That does not come into play when you have to defend something that you care about. So you have to have balance, right? Your sexual desire, it's not about suppressing it, but with your woman, you still want to enter her and conquer her because there is a certain amount of submission that you are going to receive from your woman if you can put it down sexually, if you can understand what she wants, what she likes, right? If you can remind her of who you are, right? But if you're just going out willy-nilly spreading your seed to everyone, you can destroy some things, right? So we have to be men of balance, right? We always have to be men of balance, all right? And so tonight we stand on the crossroads, right? Between the monk and the warrior, between indulgence and purpose, all right? So a man who cannot sit alone in silence will be a slave to noise in every battle that he enters. Okay, the monk understands before he masters the sword, he must master the spirit. This goes back to what I mentioned briefly, is that when you think of someone that's walking around with a firearm and they have no kind of emotional restraint, you all automatically think of them as dangerous. You automatically think of them as dangerous. Not because you might do something, not because you might confront them for no reason, all right, but because you don't know what they're capable of. They could do anything. You don't know what they will react to, right? This will be the same way that we think of just some monk or some warrior back in the day just carrying a sword willy-nilly with no kind of emotional control. So even when we talk about warriors back in the day, there was a part of emotional stability. There was meditation, there was fasting, there was self-mastery that was involved in actually becoming that warrior, that top tier warrior, right? Warrior monks, right? It wasn't just monks, right? We had warrior monks, right? So you learn the art of the blade, but you also understand that you are the weapon behind the blade. And so if I'm the weapon behind the blade, I have to achieve a level of self-mastery before I can wield that weapon properly and responsibly, all right? Because the same way that you walk around and you carry a weapon, you have an obligation, right? You have an obligation to respect that weapon. In order to respect that weapon, which is an extension of you, you should be able to respect yourself, right? There's a lot of things about you as men that are weapons, right? Even your sexuality. is a weapon. You are given this vitality, this testosterone, this sacred seed within you to use to create the life that you want, right? Or to create a child, right? But a lot of us, we choose that middle path where we're just spilling it out. Right? We're not really thinking about preserving our sexuality, preserving our sexual energy, and actually pointing it towards things that might be more beneficial for our life. Right? We are just focused on releasing it with women, or we're focused on building something so we can attract more women. Right? But there has to be this level of balance. All right, so we're going to get into that. So in the monasteries of old, young men were taught discipline, fasting, prayer, vigilance, not because suffering is holy itself, but because the soul is sharpened on the whetstone of restraint, right? The soul is a spark of the divine fire, seeking to ascend back to its source. So the sacred fire within you, your vision, your strength, your destiny, can only ascend if you stop throwing it to the ground, right? With every cheap indulgence, every unguarded desire, right? The monk is not weak, he is dangerous because he is governed by his soul and not by his appetites. Okay? So, number one, first question, right? How many of us pray for success but secretly worship our addictions? Okay? How many times do you pray for money and in that same prayer, right, because you understand the type of lustful things you can do with that money, right? How many times do we wish for certain things in spite of other people, right? Because we have an addiction for validation, right? Because we have an addiction for sexual conquest, right? These things can be your downfall, right? So we have to balance ourselves. There's nothing in the external world that you can receive that is actually going to fill that void within you. If I'm someone that needs to be with a lot of women to fill the void within me, to make myself feel whole, right? If you're the type of woman who needs to be with multiple men to make yourself feel whole, right? There is no amount of women that will satisfy that. You will never get to a point where you have sex with so many people that you say, okay, finally, I feel whole now. Now I can settle down with someone. You'll never get to that point. You'll constantly fiend more and more. This is one of the sacred things about your desires. This is why we weren't really supposed to even have a lot of premarital sex, because desire leads to more desire. What happens when people start getting on the explicit websites? They develop fetishes, right? They get more specific in their searches, right? Then all of a sudden now they're paying random women on OnlyFans to send them pictures and do all kinds of crazy things, right? Now their search history becomes very, very specific. They need more and more intense things. The more people you sleep with, you start to develop preferences, fetishes, right? It leads you down this very, very unfortunate path, okay? We even see that when you have sex with too many people, it starts to impact your search for a partner. Right? There are a lot of women, especially, who have slept with so many men that, you know, if the right man with all the right attributes came into their life, but couldn't satisfy them sexually, he was too small, he wasn't what they were used to, didn't go down on them, didn't do the nasty things she was used to, it'd be very difficult for her to stay there, for her to stay faithful. Right? There's a reason why you're not supposed to be touched by a lot of people sexually, right? This is the reason, right here, because fulfilling those desires over and over again leads to preferences, right? And it could also lead to other unwanted things, right? Unwanted pregnancies, things you can't get rid of, right? Dealing with the wrong people for a long period of time. How many people have been in the wrong relationships or stayed there for too long because of sex? You know you're not supposed to be there. In your soul, you knew deep down that you were not supposed to be in that situation, but it was beating your back out, right? But she was doing the shit that you liked. So, she can make up for it, right? How many times do we get led off of our divine path because we fall to our lower desires? This is the meaning of being trapped in hell, right? A lot of spiritual texts, they refer to the earth as hell, the third dimensional, your lower three energy centers. When you are trapped in any one of these, you are in hell because you're led by the external validation of the world, right? One of the lower energy centers, the root and the sacral, really two of the lower ones, right, are led by lust. You're led by lust. So there's a lot of people who are slaves to their lust. They're in the wrong relationships because of lust. They're chasing things simply for the purpose of satisfying their lust. And then when they get that, they lose everything because of their lust, right? This is, it's a very unfortunate path, but we see it all the time. The world gives you case studies, people that you can study all the time that fall to their lust, right? We have people in our own personal life that have lost their family because they got caught up in their lust. People that just can't pick the right man, can't pick the right woman, always caught up by their lust, right? So how many kings have fallen not because of enemy armies, but because they could not conquer the lust that devoured them from within, all right? So part 2, the warrior's domain, outer conquest with inner order, okay? The warrior is necessary. The world is a field of battle. Ideas, families, nations, they need defenders, all right? Ideas need defending. Your family needs defending. The nations need defending, right? But a warrior without spiritual discipline is a barbarian. It's a tyrant. A leader without emotional discipline is a tyrant. Someone walking around with a gun without emotional discipline, they're a problem. A man in a relationship without emotional discipline can be a problem. A woman in a relationship without emotional discipline, a problem, right? People without emotional discipline are problems. They're not people that you want to be around, right? A woman who cannot control her emotional reactions can ruin your life like this with a sentence. With a sentence. A man who cannot control his emotional reactions can take your life like this over a sentence, right? Emotional reactions can cost you jobs, opportunities, the love of your life, your family, children, all of these things, okay? So while we're on this journey, as we are on this journey of balance, it's never about suppressing emotions. It's not the right thing, right? I never talk about suppressing emotions, but it is about knowing oneself and managing your reactions to the emotions. That's the only thing that you really have control over, is your reactions. Right? You cannot control how you feel. There's certain times you're gonna get in the car and start driving, you're just randomly gonna feel sad for no reason. Right? There's certain times you're gonna get bad news, things don't go as planned, you're gonna feel down. And that's okay. But how do you react? How do you react? And the only way that you can manage these reactions is to actually confront yourself. Right? It's to be able to sit with yourself. Can you sit in discomfort? If you try to meditate right now, right, or if you go through a difficult time and you're just sitting in the crib by yourself, you're just sitting on the couch, all right, and you have bad news. Can you sit in that pain for 20, 30, 40 minutes until you actually get clarity of mind? Or do you need to turn on the TV? Do you need to go to sleep? Do you need to smoke something, drink something? Do you need to grab your phone and scroll and distract your mind? Do you feel uncomfortable sitting? Now, let me put this in a different perspective, all right? We will sit there and be uncomfortable with ourselves. We'll need something to distract us, whether it's just getting up and opening the fridge, even though you know you're not hungry, but you're just uncomfortable, so you have to move around, right? But we will expect someone to come in our life and sit through uncomfortable moments with us, right? We can't sit in the discomfort of our own emotions, but if I want to confront someone about something that they did to make me feel bad, now I am expecting them to sit down in that discomfort. So I'm expecting someone to give me something that I have not given to myself. How? That's not even how the world works. That's not how universal law works, as within, so without, right? So if I cannot sit with myself, of course I can't attract people who can't sit down with me. We're two uncomfortable people. We're two people who haven't met ourselves deeply. So now we are forced to see, because we're both mirrors, we're forced to see this deficiency in ourselves. And then we're pushed to actually heal it. Right? So the first thing that you always have to do, right? The first battle is the battle with yourself. Really, the only battle is the battle with yourself. Okay? So the true warrior doesn't just charge into the fray. He fights with purpose. He builds with integrity. He protects not just with sword, but with sacred vision. All right. Now, historical example. Alexander the Great conquered the known world before 30. My dog conquered the world before the age of 30. You feel me? Yet he wept when he had no more worlds to conquer. He could subdue nations, but not his own heart. All right. So Alexander the Great, one of history's most legendary conquerors, achieved feats that seemed impossible, leading armies across vast territories from Greece to Egypt to the edges of India, all before the age of 30. He brought empires to their knees, redrew the map of the known world, and etched his name in eternity. Yet according to ancient accounts, after his relentless conquest, Alexander wept, cried, okay, not from joy, but from despair, because he believed there were no more worlds left to conquer. His external victories, though monumental, left an aching void inside. Power, fame, and dominion over others could not satisfy the deeper longings of his soul, because the conquest of outer worlds can never substitute for the conquest of the inner world. You can use, this is a case study. Insert whatever you want into this. Insert whatever you want. Alexander the Great. Take that as you, right? Let's say that you have a desire for a whole lot of women. No amount of women. You can never sleep with enough women to reach self-fulfillment. You can never get enough money to have self-fulfillment. This was a man that conquered the known world. The map changed because of his work, because of his conquest. And at the end of it, after conquering everything, the man said, damn, bro, I can't figure out. I don't know what to do next. I don't know what to do next, right? So despite his brilliance, Alexander struggled with profound inner unrest, ambition without end, burst of rage, unchecked drinking, paranoia, and growing isolation. He could command the loyalty of armies, but could not fully master his own impulses. Think about that. He could sleep with all these women, still did not feel fulfilled. Got all this money, all this land, all this power, all these riches, all this fame, still can't reach inner peace. You can't find peace outside of you. It's not in a woman. Ladies, it's not inside of a man. It's not in money. It's not in anything of this world, right? The only way that you can find peace is going within yourself and actually finding it, okay? So his death at just 32 remains shrouded in mystery. Some say from illness. Others suggest from a body exhausted and betrayed by indulgence and overreach. Alexander serves as a timeless reminder that external mastery without internal mastery is ultimately hollow. True kingship, true greatness demands not just the ability to seize the outside world, but to govern the heart within. For a man who cannot rule himself will eventually be done by the very forces he once commanded. The desires you have are holy. They're sacred. The Most High wants to experience these things through you. The God within you wants to experience your desires through you, right? But they can't fulfill you. The only thing that can fulfill you is knowing who you are. Is going back to the source within you, right? Because you have to go inside to actually rise, right? So if you are not trying to cultivate peace within yourself, if you're not trying to conquer some of these demons, but you're chasing fulfillment in some of these demons, you're chasing fulfillment in lust. You in every woman's comment section talking to yourself, and all these women's DMs talking to yourself, spending money on all these OnlyFans women. You got the corn sites, you got all the tabs up. You'll never find peace there. Even if you transition to the real world and you can sleep with hundreds of women, you'll never find peace there. You can have millions of dollars, you'll never find peace there. You will never find peace there. Right. So Mark 8:36, for what shall it profit a man if he shall gain the whole world and lose his soul? And it's this divine wake up call, man. Look out in the world. Look at what is happening to our brothers and sisters out there that are gaining everything, the top of their game, and then one moment they lose it all because of lust, right? Now, whether you can justify or whether we say what they're doing was consensual, whatever the case may be, there are certain things, there are certain types of people, there are certain demons within you, right, that are always going to lead you down a path of destruction. They're always going to lead you down a path of destruction. And one of the main things, especially for us men, is sex, bro. It is our sexual desire, right? We build the life of our dreams. All of our desires are coming true. The Most High is just blessing, flowing through your boy. But because I cannot conquer my lust, I lose that desire. Everything that I built is gone, right? Because I'm dealing with the wrong women. Because I can't exercise discernment in the women that I entertain, right? The women that I entertain. All right. So the truest battles are within, and the weapons are prayer, fasting, clarity, and vision. All right. So part 3, guardians of the sacred fire, stewardship of the self. Men, you were not born to be ruled by your lower nature. You were not born to be ruled by lust, by your need for external validation. You were not meant to be ruled by those things. Every temptation you indulge weakens the fire. Every unguarded thought, every single one, right, leaks your authority, outsources your power to something else. You cannot build empires if you cannot govern your loins. Loins, bro. You can't control that stick, that divine magic wand that you have, right? You cannot build empires. You cannot lead nations. You can't lead a family. You can't lead a woman if you can't even lead yourself. If you cannot lead your own mind, the only thing that you have control over, your mind, you're going to have these impulses, bro. They're never going away. Your sexual desires never going away, right? Your desire to be with beautiful women, a whole bunch of them, never going away, right? But you have to do things to conquer yourself. You have to do things to remove the thought, to remove your thinking that somehow peace is on the other side of a lot of women, to remove your thinking that somehow peace is on the other side of a lot of money, right? You have to go within to find these things. This is not something that one day you hear somebody tell you these things and it clicks. This takes inner work. That inner work is you're going to have to start governing yourself, putting yourself in difficult situations on purpose. And the two primary allies that you're going to have in this life is number 1, fasting, and number 2, meditation. The two things to govern yourself, the two things to put yourself through something difficult, to overcome yourself, all right? It's going to be number 1, fasting, number 2, I'm tripping. It's going to be number 1, retention, number 2, fasting, and number 3, meditation. Right? I'm not even going to say these are in any kind of order, right? But these 3 things. You do not want to be a slave to women, to your sexual desires. You do not want to be a slave to food. And you do not want to be a slave to your own mind. You can't even sit in the discomfort of your own thoughts. They're your thoughts. This is the only thing that you have is your mind. You cannot control anything else. You can't control who knocks on your door today with good news, bad news. You can't control what happens when you get in your car. You can't control what your company wants to do with you when you get to work, if they want to let you go or not. You can't control if the money stops pouring in. You can't control shit. The only thing that you can control is this mind. So what a shame it would be to go your whole life. What a shame it would be to go your whole life and not confront these demons within you. This is where fulfillment is. And you know this intuitively. You know this, man. When do you get the most fulfillment? Do you get the most fulfillment when things are just handed to you? the easy way? Or do you get the most fulfillment when you step into things that are difficult and you conquer? This is your nature. You are a conqueror. In your bloodline, the reason why you still exist is because through your bloodline, you had people that conquered. This is written in your DNA. It is etched in your DNA, tattooed in your DNA. Right? So number one is retention. So let's talk about all three and the benefit. Number one, retention. Why is this beneficial? Because you'll see, and I've talked to a lot of clients, and this is the case, this becomes the case, right? Is that when you don't heal the way that you view women, and you just look at women as sexual objects, one, it's just a very unhealthy path to be down. And that's when you tend to be on these explicit sites and giving your money to people that you don't even know, right? So that's number one. Number two is that now you're very easy to control. So what I often tell men is you want to practice retention, but even when you get into a relationship, you still want to be practicing retention to an extent. What do you mean, Alex? Well, you still want to give it to your wife whenever, but I want you to set up times with your woman, with your wife, wherever, where you're actually trying to build intimacy and you take sex off of the table. Like, I know certain married couples, and what they do is they actually fast from sex for a long time, right? And why they do this, right, is very intentional. Why they do this is this. Because if you can completely remove sex from your mind, and then you can constantly do things with your woman that you know is going to actually build intimacy, what this does is it keeps her reminded that you don't need sex to do things. You just care about her, love her, want to build this intimacy. And what this does is it actually makes her desire you more. Because when people get into this, when people get into a certain pattern, what actually happens is that sex naturally becomes weaponized in certain relationships, where now the woman's sexual appetite might be less than the man's. So now every time he does something, maybe whether it's special or goes out the way, she thinks it's because of he wants sex. And now sex becomes this reward for good behavior, right? So now you're at her mercy. You can only have sex when she thinks you deserve it. And this is not the life that you want to live as a man. You want to walk in your crib and you want your woman to look at you with lust. You want your woman to look at you like you are a god, bruh, because you are. You want your woman to want you just as much as you want her. Okay? So we have to understand the sexual nature of women, that foreplay happens way before the bedroom, right? It happens all through the day. There's certain things that you can do for your woman that's going to turn her on, right? And so if you're intentionally trying to build these moments throughout the day and you're completely taking away sex, you're constantly keeping her in this turned on space. Now, the other side of that is if you're dealing with a woman who just doesn't like you, this won't matter anyway because she won't want to have sex with you. She won't want to have sex with you anyway, right? But when you're dealing with a woman who actually wants to be with you, you can constantly use moments to build intimacy and take away the sex. You don't want to get to a place where anybody can control you sexually. You know, any woman can use sex as a reward. Oh, you're going to get some because it's your birthday or because you did this, and now you get happy. You don't ever want to get to that position. Because now, let's talk about this from a deeper level. Now, what actually happens, first of all, it just doesn't feel good that somebody's hanging sex over your mind or over your head like a damn carrot, like you're a child, right? That doesn't feel good. But number two, when you slip into this, what you'll start doing is you'll start going out of your way to just please her so you can get sex. Now, what this does is it puts her emotions at the head of the relationship. So now, right? Now she's leading. Now, if you're getting sex, you're good. Everything's cool. But if you're not, you're going out of your way just to make her happy, just to appease her. So who's really leading the relationship? Right? Who's truly leading it? And then even subconsciously, right? If a woman's really conscious, she'll understand this. And this is why women will want a man that is more conscious and more kind of leadership. It's because she knows if she can control you with sex, right? If her emotions are leading, if you completely would change because her emotions can force you to start acting right, or her holding sex can force you to start acting right, How could she really trust you to make the right decision for the family, for you and her, if you're a slave to her emotions? How could you be objective and be like, look, I know this is not what you want to do, but this is what we have to do. We have to make this move. We have to do this investment. We have to live like this for a couple months so this can work. How could you be trusted to truly make that difficult decision if you are a slave to her emotions, right? How could you? So sexual discipline is very, very important. But then it just, even outside of the relationship, it keeps you from getting into these common pitfalls that we see a lot of men get into, right? Be out here and you are just spending money unnecessarily because you're trying to get women, right? You have unwanted pregnancies, right? Sometimes it's, your life can actually get better by removing things. Let's say that I don't have sex with women that I don't actually see a future with, right? Now, I'm not saying you have to be that extreme, right? You ain't got to be that extreme. I doubt anybody's really that extreme, right? But let's say hypothetically you say, I don't want to have sex with any woman that, you know what I'm saying, I don't really see myself with. Now, what do you avoid? You avoid unwanted pregnancies, just like that, right? You avoid potentially catching something, right? You can still catch something, but at least y'all will be together now, all right? Now let's look at it from a different angle. If I can control other addictions, right? I can control my drinking. Let's say I just don't want to drink on the weekends. Now all of a sudden I avoid DUIs, the potential of that, the potential of being in bad situations. Just by removing certain vices from my life, I can actually improve my life. Sometimes removing is just as good as adding things, right? And you also want to operate from some kind of baseline. Instead of just trying to add new things to your life and I want to get better by adding a bunch of shit, try removing some vices. What things do you do that don't serve you, right? You got to wake up at 9 a.m., 10 a.m., but you've been up till 1 a.m. watching porn. Right. Or that one girl that she was in town, right? She told you she was drinking. She was out. She was near you. She wanted to come over, but you knew you had to wake up at a certain time and get your workout in, but you entertained her anyway. How could sexual discipline change the trajectory of your life? Now, you might think, okay, that doesn't matter. I can still have my fun. You can. But what if you potentially miss out on an opportunity because of that? Let's say that you stay up with her, you deal with her till 3, and then you get up at 8. And you go work out, right? You go do your work, right? And then you're out and you meet somebody who could potentially be a client for you. And you're not as sharp because you haven't had as much sleep. Maybe you still get it, maybe you don't. What I'm saying is that you don't put yourself in the position to miss out on opportunities when you're actually walking the righteous path. And when I say righteous path, I don't mean like follow any kind of commandments or something. I'm saying you're doing things that are in alignment with the desires that the Most High has placed in your mind. The desire is that you want to be this type of person. You want this type of physique. You want this type of money. Then you already know what you should be doing to get there. And sometimes dealing with that woman on a Tuesday night at 1 a.m., you know, why the hell is she even out like that? She lives a different lifestyle to you, man. Maybe she's for the weekend instead. If you just minimize those types of decisions, your life gets better. Your life gets better, right? You sacrifice to add. You remove, this is subtraction. You subtract to add. Your life gets better by removing bullshit, man. Okay? And then number 3 is meditation. The ultimate practice of self-love. Meditation. And what you'll typically find, I'm about to go off on a whole nother side quest right here, right? Is we spend our whole life as humans. If you think about it, the human life is very, very worshiping. Human beings, we constantly need something to worship, right? We worship celebrities. We worship musicians. We worship actors. We worship our parents. We worship our spouses. We worship some external force, right? We worship everything outside of us. We're basically taught from a young age to seek validation from everyone else. There are even certain people that you might admire and look up to, but if you really started to examine how you admire them, whether they're a CEO, whether they're a singer, whether they're just a famous influencer, whatever the case may be, if you think of someone that you hold in high esteem, you put them on a certain pedestal. You put them above yourself in that way. Now, we will naturally be like, oh no, I don't put nobody above me. Nobody's better than me. But if you really think about it, if you really examine the way that as humans we naturally think about others, we tend to put other people ahead of us. We don't see ourselves ever being able to live that type of lifestyle. We don't see that we could be able to swap ourselves with them. So we're always looking for people to look up to, people to show us the way. Tell me how to think. Tell me what to believe. Tell me what kind of car to buy. Right? What do the women like? Right? Even if you worship just a group of people, I do these things, I dress these ways because this is what the hoes like. You feel me? Whatever the case may be, we tend to worship things. And we also tend to be a people of addiction. We are a people who are addicted to everything. We label negative things as addictions, right? Corn addiction, right? Alcohol, drugs, addictions, right? You can be addicted to learning. You can be addicted to success. You can be addicted to seeking validation, trying to help people. You ever been the type of person, or you ever met the type of person that they always just want to give their advice? They always want to tell you what to do, right? Or you might even be that person where you have certain people you're like, damn, I just keep telling them, I don't know why they won't listen to me, right? What's more important? That they take your advice because you believe that your advice is the right way for them to live, right? Or them just trusting you enough to be able to come to you. Because eventually, if we keep trying to push people down our path, they're going to stop coming to us, right? But we are people of addiction, right? We're constantly looking for things outside of us. Now, why do I say that we like to worship and we are a people of addiction? Because at one point of your soul's journey, multiple points, because we've all lived multiple lives, your soul was attached to the divine. Your soul was in oneness, in unity with the divine. And then you decided to come down here. And when you came down here, you did not detach from the divine at all. No, you're still 99.999% divine, God, right? Really 100%. You're just wrapped in the veil of time. You're wrapped in the veil of matter and flesh. And you come down here and you forget. And your soul has this longing to get back to source. Your soul has this longing. And typically when we do not go within to find how can I satisfy this longing, we start to look for it in everything else. And then we quickly realize there's nothing outside that can satisfy this desire, this craving for unity. Right? Some people think it's a soulmate that'll get them there. Oh, if I get this soulmate, this divine counterpart, they'll make me feel so good. I'll be whole. No, you won't. You won't. If I get all this money, I'm going to feel so whole and good. I can do all these things to help these people. You won't. Right? If I had this house, this car, you name it, whatever you desire, when you get it, you're going to feel the same. You're going to feel happiness for a little bit. But the fulfillment that you actually receive from thinking about that thing and accepting it as your own, that fulfillment is actually going to probably be greater than when you actually get that thing. What meditation does is it strips the ego. There is, and if you read something like the Gnostic Gospels, they talk about this, but there is this, and a lot of spiritual texts, let me not even say the Gnostics, right? Even if you look at Jesus' verses that they still kept, his lessons that they still kept in the traditional Bible, the kingdom was within you. You see this constant push for us to go within. Whoever comes after me is going to do greater works. He's going to do greater works to me, right? All this is referring to that God within you, right? Sitting down and actually finding that God within you. And you can only do this through meditation. You can only do this in quiet, in confronting yourself. Because what happens when you sit in meditation for long enough, right, is the first thing that you notice is that you have a lot of thoughts and your body wants to move. Your body wants to keep you distracted. You're programmed to always want to get up. I want to check my phone. I want to go get something to eat. Or I want to scratch my head, whatever the case may be, right? But once you get beyond that, and okay, now I've tapped in, I can actually sit, and now I can just listen to my thoughts. My body's calmed down a little bit. You start realizing, damn, a lot of these thoughts aren't even mine. A lot of my beliefs, where did they come from? Right? Most of my beliefs are music verses, things my parents said, things the teacher said, things I read, memes, right? Which of these thoughts is my own? And then you go a little deeper, 30, 45 minutes, maybe an hour, right? And those voices start to shut down a little bit. And then there is this stillness, this quiet within you. And then you go a little bit further, maybe an hour, hour and a half, right? Depending on how tapped in you can get, how quickly, right? Now, all of a sudden, you realize that everything that you've been searching outside of you is already within you. That bliss and that fulfillment is within you. And this is what the world means. This is what these manifestation people mean when they say that everything that you want, you already have. It's because you believe that receiving something, you believe that receiving something is going to give you fulfillment. You believe it's that car, that new house, that money, that motor. You believe that shit is going to give you fulfillment, but it's not. All that is doing, right? If you take away that item and you think about the feeling that you actually have is your soul finally saying, damn, now I can feel the divine flowing through me right now. The same way that when you experience something that you don't like, you don't really just feel bad because of that thing. It's because you put up this wall and you say, damn, now I can't feel the divine just flowing through me like this, right? So your desires, the things that you want, I tell you they're sacred. They're the things that the Most High wants to experience through you, but the Most High just wants to experience these things through you because they're fun. That's it. Because it would be fun for your personality to experience that shit. But it's not going to give you fulfillment. The fulfillment you have is when you go within yourself and you find out that the bliss that I thought I was going to get from that money, it's already within me. And the more that I tap into it, the easier those things come into me. This is what it means when everything is within you. Seek ye first the kingdom of God. The kingdom of God is within you. You've had clear instructions all this time. Clear, crystal clear. The kingdom of God is within you. The Pharisees said, bruh, Jesus, Yahshua, when will the kingdom come? Jesus said, you can't see it. It's nothing that you can see. No one will say lo here or lo there, for the kingdom is within you. It's within you this whole time, right? Even if you listen to certain spiritual texts, right? Don't really care how you interpret the Bible or read it. Right? I used to read it from more of a historical perspective, but I've switched it since then. So let me give y'all a metaphor. Right? A lot of times when we listen to the teachings of Jesus, you can also look at it from the perspective of your I am awareness telling you how to think to navigate through this world. Right? Meaning, Jesus is trying to tell you that the kingdom of God is within you and that whatever you want, you have to give it to yourself to actually receive it. Now, one of the more divine aspects of the Bible is this concept of the Immaculate Conception. Right? Mary was visited. She conceived the Most High, got pregnant, had a virgin birth and had this Messiah, right? The Christ, the I am awareness. Now, sure, historically, it means one thing. Now, metaphysically, what does that mean? What is the metaphor for this? It means that the birth of the Most High within you, your I am awareness cannot be granted to you by anyone. You cannot listen to me speak and it wakes up your I am awareness. You cannot listen to your pastor speak, to a priest speak, and it wakens up the I am awareness within you. You can't get dipped in a tub of water and all of a sudden you're saved and the I am awareness wakes up within you. This is something that you have to wake up within yourself. Only you can wake it up. You don't need anyone else. This is the metaphor for the virgin birth of your I am awareness, your Christ consciousness, is that no one had to impregnate Mary with Yahshua. No one had to impregnate her with it. The same way that no one has to spark this divine within you. You cannot sit on YouTube and get your I am awareness activated. You cannot be saved by going to church and hearing a pastor. The only way you wake up this I am awareness, the only way that you experience the bliss, that you find the peace, that you find the things that your soul has been craving for, that love, that worthiness, all those things. The only way that you understand those things beyond just an intellectual understanding is sitting your ass down in meditation and actually giving birth to those things and going against yourself. And going against yourself, right? I used to be like you, right? I used to really read the Bible as a literal thing. But anyways, so the body is the temple, right? Guard its gates, lest thieves steal away your light. All right. So the sacred fire, your sexual energy, your ambition, your focus was given to you as a trust. You are stewards, not owners, right? This is what Yahshua was trying to teach you. It's not trying to teach you to create a religion. If you even think about the concept of this, right? The Romans crucified this man and then took his teachings and wrapped it up in a book and gave it to you so those teachings could actually align with the Roman lifestyle, right? Jesus was here. Jesus did all these things that we say are demonic, right? What was Jesus doing from the time he was born to the time he was 30 years old, right? Jesus was studying with mystics. He was doing Reiki healing. He was doing Kriya yoga. These are all things that are evident in the things he was doing, healing people, right? Walking around telling you that the kingdom of God is within you. All these things were very anti-church at that time. Therefore, he was killed. Right? If Jesus was here right now, he would be completely against a lot of these teachings that you have to seek something outside of you for salvation. This is not how God operates. Why would God create you and put you down here so you have to seek your salvation in another man? So that you have to seek your salvation somewhere outside of yourself. What if you don't have access to it? That doesn't seem even right. Everything that you need is within you. And you can sit down in meditation and receive all of these things, right? You can receive everything that you want, everything that you desire inside of you. And this is the beauty of meditation, right? This is the beauty of meditation, all right? So part 4. Okay, message to women, guardians of fire, keepers of vision. All right. So I know I've been talking to men, so we're going to talk to the women for a second in this one. All right. Women, you are not excluded from this truth. Okay, you are the witnesses, the reminders, the catalyst. When you entertain men who live for indulgence, when you reward weakness instead of honoring discipline, you aid in the desecration of the sacred fire. Do not lower your standards to comfort weak men. Raise your standard to call forth kings. All right. Proverbs 31:25. She is clothed with strength and dignity. She can laugh at the days to come. You are both mirrors and midwives, reflecting the man back to himself and birthing forth greater versions of him. If you dare hold him to account. Right. And gentlemen, this is one of the beautiful things about that divine feminine energy is that no one will ever test you like your woman will. Right. No one will be a greater mirror than your woman will. Right. And I'll drop this and I'll have a lecture on this coming up soon that I'm still working on. Right. But if you really want to understand the divine feminine, read the Gospel of Mary. Gospel of Mary Magdalene. It'll give you some divine insight, right? Because, you know, the I guess the canonized Bible, is that how you say it? Like the canonized Bible, right? It gives a certain depiction of Mary Magdalene, right? But the Gospel of Mary does another thing, right? But one thing that I will say outside of that gospel, that's something that y'all should read though, is that one of the divine aspects of femininity is femininity test. Femininity tests the boundaries, right? And so why does a woman do this? Because women naturally do not submit to weak leadership. Throughout history, they couldn't, right? When you think of a woman back in the day, and you say, okay, let's say that you're in a village and that village gets invaded. If she chooses a weak man that cannot defend her, right? He's the first one chopped down. She's going to be in for a miserable time when these other people get there. Versus if she's with a man that can protect her, that can get her out of there. They can survive on their own. They can integrate with another village. He can show her strength. He can show his strength. Now, boom, he's actually protected, or she's actually protected. Right. So the women that could actually choose the right men, these are the women that survive. This is the DNA that is still here. It's still here today. Right. And so we wrap this term up in hypergamy and all these things. But what you'll also notice is that women will test you without even thinking about it, consciously and subconsciously. We got the puzzle piece. All right. Women will test you consciously and subconsciously. But the more that you can handle these tests, the deeper and deeper and deeper into trust and femininity she can actually dive into. And so I did a lecture on this when we did the book reading on the Way of the Superior Man. If you want to check that out, you can definitely check that one out. But when we think about women, the goal is not to get women to be more like men, right? The goal is just to be better with dealing with women, better with handling their emotions, better with penetrating them. Therefore, it can make our relationships better, right? Because you do want to be the quote unquote master of your woman. You want to understand your woman on a depth in a way that no one else can. All right. You might not be able to sexually satisfy her better than anybody because she's probably had experiences before you. Right. But you can understand everything that she likes sexually more than anyone. Right. You can talk her out of her emotions better than anyone. You can guide her through her issues better than anyone. Right. You should be the most skilled at handling your woman, at dealing with her. Right. You should be able to understand when this is just some petty thing, right, that she's bringing up to me. It's not really because she wants a solution or she really has a problem, right? I just need to laugh her up out of this situation, right? And this just acts as a gateway to physical intimacy. Let me give y'all another little gem, right? About 85%, between 70 and 85% of the things that your woman claims are problems that she brings to you, you can laugh her right up out of that. It's not, most of those things aren't real issues, right? But you have to have the discernment and know her well enough to understand, when is it a problem for real? When do I need to solve it? When is she just venting? When do I need to just joke around? When does she actually want to feel my intimacy, feel my masculinity, right? One of the best examples, even in that book that we did a couple weeks ago, was you could plan a date with your woman for Friday night at a certain time, right? Plan the date out perfectly, right? But then y'all get into a little disagreement the morning of. It's a little slight disagreement. And you ask her later on if she still wants to go, and she's like, I guess we can go, but we don't have to. It's up to you. That's what she'll probably say. It's up to you. I don't know. It's up to you, right? Now, if you are unconscious, okay, if you don't understand this game, you might just cancel, right? But if you understand your woman, right, that is the time where you can penetrate her emotionally, right? You can hold her and then joke with her and tell her, man, stop playing. You know you want to go still, right? You can do things to get her out of her mood, just depending on what type of woman she is. And you understand this by getting more skill with her, by knowing her more, right? Your woman, you have to conquer your woman the same way that you conquer life, right? Life is going to be difficult sometimes for no fucking reason, just because it's life, right? And this is feminine energy. Even if you think of polarity in the world, what is money? Money is feminine energy. What is a high rise? What is a nice building? This is feminine energy. A nice car is feminine energy. Everything that you want is feminine energy. And sometimes it just gives you problems for no reason. And you have to figure out how to deal with it, right? Now you could say, well, damn, I just wish women were easier. You can say that if you want, but do you really want to date another man? You know, or do you actually just want to get more skill with women so you can build deeper connections with them? There are few things as fulfilling as actually building a deep connection with a woman, because that's probably the closest that you're going to feel to God without going within yourself in this lifetime, right? It's having that divine counterpart that can actually reflect your deficiencies and your flaws back at you. All right. So That's a tidbit, just a little bit of game right though. Okay. So part 5, the new covenant, the monk and the warrior united. All right. So imagine a man who can pray at dawn and lead armies by noon, who fasts in secret but builds empires in public, who restrains his desires so that his vision may be unrestrained. This is the new masculine code, okay? Not indulgence, not apathy, but stewardship, purpose, sacred dominion. James 1:12, blessed is the man who remains steadfast under trial, for when he has stood the test, he will receive the crown of life in everything. In everything. You have to stand the test of your woman and her moods. You have to stand the test of money, figuring out how to get it, right? You have to stand the test of your lust, how to conquer it. You have to stand the test of sitting in silence with all of your emotions and saying, no, 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 no. I am the boss here, and we are going to get in touch with the divine right now. I don't really care how I feel. When your brain is trying to tell you, maybe we should check the text, check the email, check social media. We should turn on the TV. Oh, go look in the refrigerator, stand up, scratch your knee. You have to be the one that conquers it and says, no, no, no. We sit down right now and we figure this out, right? This is self-mastery. There's nothing in this life, especially the worthwhile things, that does not come with some kind of work, some kind of discipline, right? And if you just get things, we even see all the time, people win the lottery and then they lose all their money, right? Why is this, okay? So you don't want to be the person who receives these sacred and holy desires from the Most High, right? That God within you, right? That God that cannot be distinguished from you, that cannot be separate from you, that I am awareness within you provides this desire as a sacred insight. And you get to that desire and then you lose it all because you can't control your lust. Because you can't control your lust, because you are undisciplined, because you cannot control your reactions to your emotions, and now, boom, you lose it all, right? We have to be skilled as men, extremely skilled as men. One of the other things, let's say, it used to get pushback. It doesn't really get that much pushback anymore. It's as men, you have to even be more skilled in your relationship with your woman. You have to be more skilled than her in the relationship. You have to be more emotionally solid. Your emotional reactions have to be different. There's certain ways that she could react to you, but you can't react that way to it, right? Now, I'm not saying to allow abuse. I'm not saying a woman should be putting her hands on you. A woman puts her hands on you, you should already know to get the hell about it up. Right. The woman starts threatening you with things that could potentially cost you your life or your freedom. You should be getting away from there. Right. If you even sniff those type of things about to occur, you should be out of there immediately. Yesterday, you should have been gone. Right. But there are certain things that your woman can get away with that you can't. Right. You have to be more emotionally sound. You have to be the better communicator. You have to be able to set the table for both of y'all to have constructive conversations better than she can. Spiritually, you're going to have to be more solid on. Your faith is going to have to be touched. How one of the more beautiful things with dealing with a woman, right, is that women, their mind, right, because they have this womb and they're connected to the cosmos, their emotions and their mind flows in this beautiful way. And sometimes it's chaotic, right? Because the womb is chaotic. Right? This is why, even if you think of the metaphor of sex, the conception is that you insert your wand into this woman, and boom, it turns chaos into order, and it materializes, manifests as this new avatar for this soul to be invited into to experience life. Right? This is the order that you bring to the chaos of the womb. You basically explode in it, and then boom, it manifests into order because you enter there. Now, one of the more beautiful things is, right, your woman has had a rough day and she comes to you with all of her problems and she's telling you about this girl and, you know what I'm saying, this person did this, and she's got all these ideas in her mind that she's trying to orchestrate, and you just listening to her and you piecing it together, right? And now you have mastered it to the point where you know which thing she just wants to vent about, which thing she actually wants advice on. And then you can organize her mind and just take all those thoughts and just put them in a direction and point her down the path. And then she relaxes more into you. And then you give her that divine pipe afterwards, right? That divine Wakanda vibranium pipe, right? Now, let's flip the script. Let's say that you have all of these problems on your mind and you sit down with your woman, right? And now you start telling her all the problems going on at work and all the shit going on. Do you think that it's going to end up with her talking you out of your drawers because you just brought all of your problems to her and dumped them on her? Do you think that's how it's going to go? Right? Absolutely not. That's not how it's going to go. So you have to be more skilled in these things. Now, let's look at it from another level. If you're not able to emotionally regulate yourself, to order your life, to take all of these issues in your life and put them through the lens of faith, right? And actually figure out, okay, these things I can't control. Boom, I'll leave that to the Most High, the God within me. Okay, you take that. Now I know that I can actually make these things happen in this moment. If I cannot do that for my own life, how the hell could I do that for a woman? How? You can't. You could not do that for a woman, right? So this amount of self-mastery, when you get to this point, when you become the grand architect of your life, of your thoughts, when I've done the meditation, I've done the work, the emotional work, right? I have controlled that lustful dragon within me, right? That sexual energy. You've done the work. And now you step to this divine woman, as this divine man, right? And you are the more skilled person. Now your relationship can go further, right? So it is you're not serving yourself by thinking that any relationship truly is 50-50. It's not, right? Because shit, it's just not. It's just not. Even if you talk about it from a bill perspective, or we talk about it from a skill perspective, if you just think about this, let's just think about this logically with what women want. Okay? What kind of man does this woman want? You know what I'm saying? Does she want a leader? Would you ever follow somebody who you don't respect, who you don't look up to in some degree? Think about the last boss you had at work. If you've had a corporate job, think about the last time you worked for somebody and you didn't respect them. What could they tell you? It didn't matter what they say. You were ready to roll your eyes. It don't matter. The moment you saw their email with their name on it, you didn't even have to read it. You already felt some type of way. This motherfucker here. Here this motherfucker go again. It doesn't matter what they say. You are going to question it. So we understand this in the context of work. But when it comes to relationships, all of a sudden, we don't take respect as that big of a thing. You have to respect that person. And so for me to respect someone, I have to admire them in some kind of way. I have to look up to them in some type of way. Now, men, you're also going to have to respect your woman and look up to her in certain areas as well, right? So this is where that divine balance comes in, because there's going to be some things that your woman is better than you in naturally, right? But when we talk about overall skill of how to manage a relationship, how to push the relationship forward, that's all you, my brother. That's all us, right? We are the ones who are going to be pushing that relationship forward, right? You are the one who determines if there's going to be a relationship or not. You are the one who determines if there's going to be a marriage or not. You determine this shit. We are the architects of that. We have to be more skilled, right? The relationship goes as you go. It falls as we fall. Now, it can fall from the woman for a lot of reasons, right? But even if I take it back to kind of worldly examples, your woman could afford to lose a job or go through a life situation and not be able to pay shit. She probably is not anyway, right? But not be able to pay shit for, let's say, a month or two. Or let's say, forget the payment part. Let's say she goes through a difficult situation and she's sitting on the couch depressed for 2 weeks. Let's say she loses a job and she's sitting on the couch depressed for 2 weeks. She hasn't moved much. You're going to check on her, but are you going to think about leaving her? No, you're still going to handle your business, right? Saying like the divine man that you are, right? Like the God that you are. You just gonna be worried about her. You're just going to be worried about her. Now, let's say that you lose your job, gentlemen. And let's say for 2 weeks, you ain't looking for shit. You just sitting on the couch. No money's rolling in. You're self-pitying yourself. Your woman might care about you and look at you for a day or two. You might get 3. If you're really lucky, you might get 3. If she's out the house a lot, you might get 3 days, right? But you think for 2 weeks, she's going to still want to be there? You're high if you think so. You are high if you think so, right? So we have to be skilled, and we have to take on that divine burden, right? That divine burden. All right, so final challenge. What parts of yourself have you let fall into chaos because you refuse to govern them? What does chaos look like? When we're talking about sexual discipline, what does chaos look like? It looks like I'm throwing money to the OnlyFans. It looks like I got all the corn sites remembered, right? It looks like I spend time with it. It looks like I'm always chasing women, right? That's what it looks like, okay? And where have you sought to conquer the world while ignoring the battleground within, right? Where have you thought that receiving that thing is going to actually bring you peace or bring you fulfillment or joy or happiness, right? Or whatever the case may be. When have we said, you know what, if I actually get this, then I will feel better about myself, right? That is where we have to work on. That is what we have to work on. That is where the work starts, okay? So in closing, okay? Govern your mind as you would govern your kingdom. Master your desires as you would master your enemies, and build a life worthy of the fire that was entrusted to you. For the world does not need more indulged boys pretending to be men. The world needs warriors, steady hands, steady hearts, and steady souls who can turn the tides of history because they have first turned the tides within. All right, what good is it to conquer the world if you have not conquered yourself? All right, what good is it to conquer the world if you have not conquered yourself? Right? You're just going to put yourself on that seesaw. You go up for a little bit, and then the world is going to push you back down. You're going to be knocked down. Right? And this is not the life that you live. Right? Divine, you came down here to experience life fully, to walk through life as the God or the goddess that you are. Right? And part of the work as fully embodying the divine masculine, the divine feminine, right, is confronting yourself, is understanding your weaknesses, is understanding that you are an unlimited and infinite being having this earthly experience, right? That you are a God incarnate in this body, right? And the more that you go within, the more that you rise, right? The more that I start to conquer these things. And this is another problem that I have with church, right? Because we talk about things like sexual discipline. If you go to church, they'll just tell you, well, just keep it in your pants, right? Just ignore it. Just no sex until marriage. But they don't actually tell you how to transmute that energy, which is the more important thing. Because even if you look at the church, right, they have sexual scandals all through that mud, right? Because of suppression of it. Well, that's one reason. Right? There's other reasons too, right? But suppression of energy. Where does suppression of your sexual energy lead you? Right? When is suppression ever a good thing? Suppression of emotions leads you to explode. Suppression of sexual energy leads you to all kinds of devious behaviors. Right? But your sexual energy has more than one way of expressing itself. It just wants to create. This is creative energy. It's just that we've been programmed to think that we can only express it through our lower energy centers, right? You can only express it by entering a woman or turning on the site, relieving yourself somehow. But this is energy that just wants to create. It wants to create a child, or it wants to create the life that you want. So once you start to learn how to transmute this energy, right? Transmute it through working out. You can transmute it through a business. You can transmute it through fasting. You can transmute it through meditation. You can transmute it through visualization. right? All types of ways. But also, right, when you find that divine counterpart, right, you can start doing tantra. You can start circulating that energy. There are certain practices that allow you to transmute this energy within you quicker when you're actually with a woman, right? So I always tell you, like, the divine path, right? You should be practicing retention if you're a man. I highly advise you to only probably release once every month or two. Probably once a month max, right? To keep that energy within you. Have sex as much as you want, right? With the right woman. All right, so now we got to really talk about this. All right, so when we talk about sexual energy, this is why it's important to only deal with women that care about you, okay? Because women energetically are receivers. They're the emotional and spiritual centers of the home. Okay, the man, right? We are the emotional leaders of the home, but the emotional center is the woman, meaning she's always vented to. So she's always receiving energy. Have you ever noticed that when you tell your woman something, you might have a problem, you tell her something just like as an FYI, and you might revisit that conversation later and realize, damn, she's been worried about this more than me. And now it's actually handled. But she's like, oh, I was just worried about you. Like, no, I'm cool. Right? A woman holds on to emotions in a different way than we do, especially a woman that cares about you. Matter of fact, only a woman that cares about you holds on to emotions in a different way. And men, when we receive a woman's emotions, the first thing that we want to do is we want to put the problem in front of us and knock it off. Right? This is why some of the work that we have to do is in understanding when is the time to give our advice, when is the time to allow her to vent, when is the time to joke with her when she's actually giving you that problem, when is the time to actually just try to touch on her and, you know, give her some of that vibranium when she has that problem, right? So we have to understand these things because our natural desire is to want to get rid of that problem. Her natural tendency is she holds on to that emotion. Now, how do women release these emotions? They release a lot of energy through the womb, all right? They have cycles aligned with the moon, right? How crazy is that? Just think about that. A woman has a cycle aligned with the moon. It's insane, all right? So there's always a spiritual undertone to anything physical, right? The world is multidimensional. So she's eliminating things physically, but also spiritually. Things are being cleansed out, right? Things are being released from her. Now, the woman is intelligent. This is a highly intelligent thing, right? The woman is very intelligent. So now, what happens if a woman has been receiving energy from other men, from her kids, from her homegirls? They've been dumping shit on her all month. And now you enter a woman who does not care about you. And her womb knows. The womb is connected to this woman. And the womb knows we don't care about you. What do you think? What kind of energy do you think you're going to be receiving from her? Do you think you're going to be receiving the divineness, her divinity? Do you think it's going to be wasted on you? Right? So now we're in this negative transmission where I'm dumping shit on her. She's dumping shit on me. Our auras, our energy fields are all intertwined. And we both come out. It felt good in the moment. It felt real good in the moment. But afterwards, it's like, damn. You know, I feel things that I don't really think are me, right? And the more conscious you get, the more that you'll understand this, right? So you don't want to deal with women who do not care about you. Now, when you actually do deal with women that care about you, what you can actually do is you can practice tantra, right? But you can transmute your sexual energy with her in a way that is much more difficult to do on your own. So the Tao, they speak of this energy called Jing, right? And Jing transfers into Qi, your life force. So when you are having sex with a woman that cares about you, okay, your sexual energy begins to transfer within you, right? It begins to circulate. And what this does is it transfers, transforms, transmutes your sexual energy into Jing and then into Qi. And what this does is this can actually rejuvenate your body. It can actually rejuvenate her as well. So now you're getting these spiritual benefits. Another thing that you do with a woman that you actually care about is this is why they say, you know, when two people join in prayer, it's stronger than one. Now, when we typically think of prayer, we're like, oh, when I pray, I gotta sit on my knees and cross my hands and, do the sign of the cross and Heavenly Father. No. Every thought, every intention is a prayer. Every word you speak is a prayer, right? And so this is why your purpose becomes your shield, gentlemen. If I have a purpose, one thing that you know about a woman is an energetic receiver, right? Meaning, if a woman likes you, what does she start doing? She starts receiving your energy and doing stuff like you. She starts talking like you, using your slang, wearing your clothes, you know what I'm saying? Wearing your shorts around the crib, wearing the t-shirt, coming out your bedroom in her uniform, your big ass t-shirt, and no drawers. You feel me? All right, so your woman begins to receive you energetically. She starts to act like you. But your purpose, she also starts to take that on, right? So a woman that really likes you, when you start telling her the things you're interested in, it's like all of a sudden she's like, oh my God, I want to learn. And she starts trying to learn those things. She almost starts treating your purpose like it's hers, right? Because the woman understands a woman that cares about you wants to uplift you. A woman that cares about you, she finds pleasure in serving you and pleasing you. Right. And I truly want every man to experience a woman that really cares about you. Because if you really experience a woman that cares about you and loves you, you will never deal with a woman that is half-assed about you again. But unfortunately, I think that a lot of men are not experiencing women that really care about them. Right? But if you experience a woman, play pool now. That's how it be, right? But when you experience a woman that truly cares about you, it is different. It is divine. It is divine, all right? So now what y'all can do is when you guys are aligned, okay? Let's think about this. When you are aligned, when I say that every single thought is a prayer and she understands your purpose, she understands where you are headed, okay? Now her prayers, her thoughts, when she's thinking of you and she's holding you up in highest things, she respects you. I look up to this man. He's a leader. He's a good dude, right? I want him to get everything that he wants. Your prayers become amplified. Your prayers become amplified. And then what also happens when you lay down with somebody? When you lay down with somebody, what actually forms between y'all is a soul tie. Soul tie, it gets a bad rap today, right? You get a soul tie. You get a tunnel that's formed in between you. Okay, and so what happens in this tunnel is that energy transfers, thoughts, intentions, it makes y'all a little bit more telepathic. You can lay down with somebody, and if they care about you, you care about them. All of a sudden, you realize that you can communicate better. I don't know if y'all have ever noticed this. When you deal with somebody that you like, that they like you, right? Doesn't matter if it lasted or not afterwards, right? But all of a sudden, your communication gets a little bit better. Y'all can read each other better. Your jokes hit home better, right? This is because you're a little bit more telepathic now. Now, back in the day, why was this important? Because they couldn't pick up a cell phone and call each other, all right? But we also understand that our ancestors, their intuition, their knowing was colder than ours. They knew about the solar system. They knew about, functions of the body that science is just now proving now. Right? They knew about shit that we're just now figuring out. They were more tapped in. They didn't have all these screens and stuff blocking them and throwing them off, right? But why would it be important for me to have a telepathic communication with this woman? Because she needs to know if you're coming back from war. Is he gonna make it back or not? Right? Should I wait for him or not? Right? I need to know if she's in trouble. I need to get my ass to the crib. Right? I need to know if she's in distress. So you have this connection. Now, since you have this connection, your thoughts are stronger between each other. Your thoughts also become stronger to the cosmos because God is within you, right? So now your communication, your thoughts are deeper. Your prayer is deeper. This is a beautiful thing. This is a divine thing. This is a good evening, good evening. This is a divine thing if she cares about you. Now, what typically happens is that people get this divine connection and then they fall out for whatever reason. So y'all were pointed in the right directions. Y'all cared about each other. You were on point purposefully, right? You were in the beginning of the relationship and all of a sudden it felt magical. It's like life was better. All of a sudden, I had more money so I could do more with this woman. I really cared about her, right? Your life starts getting better. You see more synchronicities. It feels spiritual. Your life just feels like it's flowing better. And then y'all start falling off. And then when you do fall off, what actually happens, right? Let's talk about it spiritually. What happens is that y'all still have this soul tie, y'all still have this etheric tunnel, right? But what is the meaning of sex spiritually? The meaning of sex spiritually is that y'all are married now. This is why even back in the day, the marriage didn't mean that y'all were married, right? It was y'all have to consecrate the marriage, right? Y'all have to have sex afterwards. This seals it because they knew something that we didn't know, right? Now we try to do things backwards. We want to have sex and then we want to have marriage. Now let's have sex and then no, y'all been married. You're just going through the ceremony now, right? So now y'all don't talk anymore, okay? But spiritually you're married, so two become one, right? So y'all are one mind. You're supposed to be focused on the same thing, the same purpose, the same desires, the same goals. But now y'all fall off, okay? You fall off completely. And now where she used to say, oh, I love this man, I respect this man, I look up to this man, he's gonna get everything he want. Now she looking at you and saying, this bum, this broke ass nigga, he's not finna get what he wants. Now, because y'all are married and two have become one, you become a double-minded man. Now, one of you wants one thing, the other one is saying you'll never get it, right? Both of y'all have desires that y'all communicated when y'all were together, but now that y'all are apart, y'all have different desires. Y'all don't want the other person to achieve that shit anymore, right? So it might get a little bit more difficult spiritually, right? Because now y'all are sending out these negative vibrations. Right? Let's not even say vibrations, right? Y'all are just sending out negative intentions, negative prayers for one another. Right? Okay, so how do you actually break this? How do you break these soul ties? Shit, you just ask for them to be broken. You have the power within you to call it off. Right? We just don't learn that. We think that we have to be baptized, and we think that some pastor has to put his hand on our head, and we have to go cut cords and cut all and do all these ceremonies. You don't have to do shit. You just have to ask. The power is within you, right? Even if let's talk about this, right? The power of spells is your mind. Your mind makes the spell powerful. If you think of somebody doing a spell, right, and they're mixing all this shit in front of you, they're mixing like all these potions and stuff in front of you. If they're doing a spell, what makes the spell powerful? It is the intention behind it. It is their mind behind it that makes the spell powerful. All these things just impress the subconscious mind. That's all they were trying to do, is impress the subconscious mind. Okay. But we can go deeper into that. But even like now, because we are in a certain phase, because the planets are in a certain phase, right? We're all more powerful. So we don't even need a lot of those spells, right? But even going back to this, right? Let me give y'all another example of why it's your intention and not the actual spell that makes you powerful. Let's talk about a love spell. Let's say that I want to do a love spell that makes everything better. It makes whatever better. One of the most popular love spells you can do is cooking for somebody. Right? When you cook for somebody, you're putting your love in that food. All right? This is why you want to be careful about the food you eat. So let me give you an example to make this point. You're probably like, what the fuck are you talking about? If you cook the same food as your grandma, whose food is going to taste better? If your grandma make you a peanut butter jelly sandwich and some random person made it for you, your grandma's will taste better. If your grandma make a certain recipe and you stood by her and you did the exact same shit over and over and over again that she did, hers would taste better. Why? It's because she has more love. The way that she loves you is different. The way that she loves her grandchild is different, right? No one could ever replicate that, right? That in itself is a spell. That in itself is a spell. So it's the intention that makes that food better for you, right? It's that intention behind it. This is why you have to be careful about people's food that you eat, right? It might not impact you in a big way, but if somebody's making that food in a terrible mood, they don't have good intentions for you, right? I don't give a fuck about who's about to eat this shit. I'm having a bad day, right? Their intention, they're still pouring energy into whatever they're making. And then you're consuming it, you're consuming energy. Energy cannot be destroyed. We know these things, we just don't apply it to everything. But everything applies to everything. Life is multidimensional. Everything applies to everything. If you want to learn about anything, if you want to learn about everything, learn about anything. If you want to learn about anything, if you want to learn about everything, learn about anything, right? So energy cannot be destroyed. It can only be transferred. Only be transferred. And it can transfer indefinitely, right? The example I give when we talk about energy transfer and like people, right, is let's say that you are in a drive-through and the woman that's giving you your order, she spills coffee on you by accident, and then you snap on her. And now that energy transfers to her. And now she snaps on somebody behind her. She gives an attitude to one of her coworkers, right? Or she's just silent. Let's say she doesn't even give an attitude to them. You drive off. Let's say she gives an attitude or she's shorter with the next person in line. And the next person in line, their kid is in the back seat, jumping up and down, yelling, mommy, mommy, or daddy, daddy. And then they snap on the kid. Then the kid goes to school and they give their teacher a harder time. And then the teacher is like, man, I've been trying to get through these kids and I can't. And then they go home and they take that energy off of their kid. Who stops the transfer of energy? Until someone actively transmutes it, that energy can transfer forever. And we tend to be a type of people that let outside things influence us. How many people do we know that are just like, oh, I just had a bad day. Why did you have a bad day? Because so-and-so did this. Why are you in a bad mood? Because this person did that. So we are a people that is easily influenced by others. So energy passes. Even if you go back and you apologize to that one person, that cashier, oh, I'm sorry. You just have a change of heart. You driving around, you get out of the car, you go into the McDonald's, you talk to her, and you're like, man, I'm sorry, man. I didn't mean to go off on you like that. The energy's still going. You stopped it right there, sure. But it's still transferring. The same way if you gave a compliment, that energy can transfer indefinitely. Everything flows indefinitely. Even money is energy, right? You give $5 to somebody, you know what I'm saying? If that $5 is meant to help somebody, it's going to make it to them eventually. We tend to think of our money as just where we hand it. I'm doing a good thing with my money by giving it to this charity or giving it to this person on the corner. It will get there regardless. It doesn't matter what you do. If that money was meant to help someone, it is going to get there and help someone. Right? This is why money wants to flow through people that are open vessels for money. Right? Because if this money needs to go through you to help somebody, but you being stingy and greedy and you holding on to it and you say, oh no, shit, I can't let this money go. I need it too bad. Well, that money has to find a way to get to that person. So if it can't flow through you, it's going to find a way. There's no shortage of God's prosperity. There's no shortage of divine prosperity. But divine prosperity has to flow where it needs to flow. Right? So if divine prosperity knows you an open vessel, then it's going to give more to you because it knows that through you, my works will be getting done. But if you're greedy and cheap and that work can't get done, it can't go through you. It cannot go through you, right? So we have to be open vessels in all of these ways to allow prosperity to flow through us. I went on a whole side quest. I know I'll be doing that shit, man. Just start talking and going down the path. But anyways, you want to deal with women that care about you. I'll wrap it up like that. But you want to deal with women that care about you, man. I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. So, in closing, right, what good is it to gain the world and lose your soul? What good is it for me to gain all these things and then lose it all because sexual discipline is lacking? What good is it for me to gain all these divine things and lose it because my emotional reaction cost me an opportunity, cost me a job, cost me a relationship, right? We need to be people of balance, right? This is part of that divine journey, that journey of returning to oneness, returning to yourself, right? It is going within and it is finding that balance within you. It's finding that bliss, that fulfillment, that wholeness within you that transcends anything that you are looking for in the external life, right? Balance, balance, balance. Are you saying you want to deal with them? For sure. We all want to deal with people that care about us, right? That care about us. And we only want to deal with people that care about us. self-mastery and balance, right? So life is about this. It's about self-mastery and balance. And to return back to oneness, to get back to your divine nature, you're going to have to do work to find that divine balance, to go within, right? So, especially for men, right? The three practices that I'm going to recommend, number one is meditation. Set time to meditate every day. The longer, the better. Set out a 2-hour block every day to meditate. 2-hour block. Wake up at 4:45. Work out to 5:45. Then I meditate until 7:45. And that gives me enough time to be on the computer ready for the market to open at 8:30 a.m. Right? Non-negotiables. Non-negotiables. Number two is fasting. Right? A lot of this food is very addictive, right? It's a lot of processed food. There's a lot of chemicals in the food. So you want to put yourself in a position where you're not a slave to gluttony, where you're not a slave to your lower energy centers. And your food really impacts your solar plexus, which impacts your intuition, right? You don't want your intuition to be off, right? One thing, I'm gonna sound like a broken record, right? Is that one purpose of fat in our body is it prevents toxins from leaking into our bloodstream. Another purpose is that it actually holds trauma, holds old pain, programming patterns, etc. Right? So the more that you keep your body lean and healthy, the easier you can burn through problems and trauma and pain. Right? And you also just don't want to be exposing yourself to all these addictive, highly addictive foods. Right? And you don't want to feel dependent. You do want to get to a point of self-mastery where I can control what I place into my body. Right? When you can control what you place into your body, if you can control the type of women that you deal with, the sites that you watch, right? When you release, right? You have put yourself above 99% of men. Because most men are slaves to food and most men are slaves to their lust. Right? This is the real start of crossing into that quote unquote, the triggering word, the high value man, right? If you truly want to be high value, then value the temple, right? Value this divine temple, right? It doesn't matter what you receive in the external world if you cannot control yourself sexually, if you're just a slave to your desires, if you can't go within, if you can't tap in, man, you can lose it all quickly. You can lose it all anyways, right? But you'll never find fulfillment. You'll always be chasing, and you'll find yourself putting yourself in positions that could jeopardize everything, right? So I know I mentioned fasting, and then retention, meditating, fasting, and retention. Those are the three things. And then for women, meditating for sure, fasting for sure, sexual discipline, right? Now, the physiological benefits of women and men are completely different when it comes to sexual discipline and practices like retention or just abstinence in general. But you still don't want to ever get to a point where someone can control you sexually, men or women. Like, you don't want to be in a situation too long because of sex, because a lot of people do that, right? And you don't want to get to a point where somebody holds sex over your head like a carrot. If you act good, I'll give it to you. If you don't act right, then I won't. Right? Now you're just a slave to their emotions. You're constantly chasing them around, trying to appease them so you can have your desires fulfilled. Right? And then you might turn to the explicit websites and be giving money to, things that you don't need to give money to. Okay? So definitely those three things. So I'm going to end it here because I'm getting a little tired of talking. Right? But we will end this with prayer, per usual. And then I'll probably be on earlier tomorrow. Today, I started late because I was in I was in the longest trade. If any of y'all, I know a couple of y'all are traders. I was in the longest trade that I've been in a while today. It was that big down move in NASDAQ and SPX, S&P 500. The big down move, it started at I think it started before 9. And I was in it for a while, for a long time, right? But then after that, the market just reversed and went all the way back up, which is crazy. So I'm interested, did anybody make moves both ways? If anybody trade, anybody make moves, make money both ways? I told myself I would start looking at the afternoon session, but I just cannot bring myself to, if I have the charts open, I'm more likely to trade. So I try to keep out of it after I finish my work. Just started. Shit, well, good luck on the journey, man. Good luck on the journey. Because it is a journey of self-discovery. The beautiful thing about trading is trading is unlike any other career. First of all, it's something that can be done in complete isolation, which is why I was, you told me about this, I said, sign your boy up. I need it now, right? But if you want to trade, you absolutely should. But it's not easy. And the reason why it isn't easy isn't because of the skill, right? It's not because of the market. Market really, when you break it down in its simplest form, it can go up or down, right? It can deviate, and the market has rhythms and patterns and all those things. But even if you think about it like that, right? The market can go up or down. Typically it goes up because it goes up all the time, right? It's always kind of getting up and making new highs, right? So if you think about it from that standpoint, it shouldn't be difficult. But why it is difficult is because of the mental part of it. Beyond anything, it's the person that you become from trading, right? For sure. Yeah. It's the person that you become in the process of learning how to trade, which is important, right? And I give y'all some gems that helped me actually become profitable. Is number one, the market is, I treat the market like a entity, okay? Not some divine entity, but I treat the market as an entity that rewards discipline and punishes bad behaviors, because that is what it does. If you get lucky in the market, you don't own that money. The market will take it back, right? But the market rewards discipline over time, and it punishes greed. It punishes fear, right? It punishes impulsiveness, right? It punishes not flowing with your strategy. It punishes gambling. It's specifically designed to punish you for those things. So once I slipped into that mindset, I was like, okay, well, if that's what it punishes, then really the journey is about me controlling my impulses, me going into the market and being like, all right, well, am I placing this trade because I'm being greedy? Because I just see the market running, it's going up, right? And I see the options contracts, I see the futures contracts just doing numbers, going from 20 to 30 to 40 to $50, right? I just see them turning over. Is that why I'm chasing it, or am I getting in because this is actually a good trade, right? Am I getting in because of fear? Because I fear I'm going to miss out on this move, right? Is it greed, right? Why am I getting in this move? And if it's any of those feelings, any of those thoughts, I know that I'm going to be punished for it eventually. If not now, then later. So I stay out, right? And so you have to learn how to have more satisfaction from the process versus actually making money. And the beautiful thing is that once you take off the money, because when I first started getting profitable as well, what I did was I turned off the actual money that I was earning, and I just focused on the process. All right, put my entry here. This is where I take profit. This is where the stop is. This is how I manage my stop as it goes up or down at swing highs, swing lows, fair value gaps, etc. Right? It completely took away the money. And then once I got comfortable with that, I was like, okay, well, shit, if I do this and I only look at it this way, now I know that I can actually go back and research and say, I know that I win 68% of the time in this setup, this percent of the time, and I'll make this amount of money. And now I can just go in there emotionless and just execute like a assassin. Just get in, get out, right? But the market is really, it's self-growth. And you'll see that the further you get on that journey, you'll be able to tell who could make it and who can't, who would take a long. I think anybody can. Okay, let me not say that. I don't really think anybody can make it in trading, but I think that it requires a certain type of person, right? A very disciplined person, right? A very disciplined, a very self-aware person. And people who are not disciplined, are not self-aware, it's people who are very emotionally reckless, reactive. They'll struggle in the market for a long time until they get those things, those traits, right? So it's more of a, man, it's a more than the strategy. Forget the strategy, right? Like, learn one strategy. Just learn one strategy. Forget the strategy. Just work on yourself. The more you work on yourself in the market, that's when you become profitable. There's no 100% strategy. You can be profitable with a 50% strategy with a 2R risk to reward. When I win, I make $50. When I lose $25, 50-50. You're going to make money over time. How come most people don't? Because most people are degenerates in the market. Most people are gamblers. Most people cannot control themselves. They see the market going up, they have to buy. Going down, most people, when you really look, because I've done some mentoring for traders too, and you look at their executions and their journey, it's like, damn, bro, you're always buying at the highs and selling at the lows, right? You actually have to be very skilled to even do that. If you had just reversed, you would be profitable, right? But this just comes from chasing. It's such a regular thing to do, right? And yeah, TradingView, you can practice. You can practice on Charles Schwab, Thinkorswim. You can practice on Robinhood. I don't know how much capital practice funds that TradingView gives, but I know Thinkorswim, Charles Schwab, and then also Robinhood, they both give you $200K of like paper money to go in and practice your trades with. And the setup's pretty easy. But yeah, there's a whole lot. But I only use Thinkorswim, Charles Schwab. Only use them. But man, good luck on y'all's journeys. Like, for sure. It's a skill that will make you see money different. It'll make you see yourself different. And it will allow you to have the freedom to do what you want. It's worth it. It's worth it. If you can become a student of yourself, it's nothing like it. It's completely freeing. The markets will never stop. They'll always do what they do. And if you can find an edge and you can master yourself emotionally, the things you can do are incredible. Right? Like, even beginning of the year. So I just started back trading like the last 2 weeks. Before that, I didn't trade for like 2 months because I was just chilling. I didn't like the market rhythms. I just could afford to, you know what, I'm not going to trade for a couple months. I can't do that with a regular job. I couldn't just wake up one day and be like, you know what, I'm not going to work for a couple months with a regular job, right? But you can afford to do that. You can literally get to a point where you, like, now, my lifestyle, right? I know exactly what I'm going to get. If I want to scale up, I can. Right? But I'm comfortable with the risk that I do right now, the risk that I use right now. So why scale up more? Well, I might eventually, but the biggest thing is just buying back your freedom, man. You buy back your freedom. And then you can because if you can, let's put it like this. Let me put this in perspective, right? This is another thing that really allowed me to be profitable, right? Is the capital that you have in the market, these are your bullets, right? So if you just follow your regular risk to reward and you just trade disciplined, you never know what day can be the day that just sets your account up, right? So for instance, last year, like the last 4 or 5 months of the year, I was making, I ain't gonna talk about that, but I was making a good amount, around a good amount per trade. And I was starting to like really hone in on what I was doing, right? And there was just one day where Jerome Powell came up and talked. And typically I'm used to making, let's say 20 to 80% per trade, right? And so if you lose, you might lose 15% or whatever of the risk capital. But this day, this man started talking and the options went up like $4,000. The put option. So the market was actually crashing, but the options were going up like 4,000%, right? And so just that one day. Talking about 4,000%. Think about that. Let's say you're let's just use blank numbers. All right. So you're typically putting 100 down and you're making $20 to $80. But then all of a sudden one day, out of the blue, 4,000%. 4,000%. Right? 4K. Right? You could literally do that just out the blue. You just never know when these big days will come, right? So as long as you can stay disciplined and then just allow the market to show you what it wants to give you, just take what you can a little bit by little bit, sure, you can take off with it. Then another thing that I would recommend is definitely have something else that you're doing while you're learning. Because the pressure that comes from doing it full time is different. It's something that I didn't understand until I started doing it full time. Right? The pressure of like doing it can make you cause or can allow you to make mistakes. So I would say if I had to do it over again, I would say have something steady that you know just pays the bills, everything extra that you can get, put in the market, only focus on risk management and discipline, and let time do the heavy lifting. Let time do the heavy lifting for you. If you go into like a compound calculator app and you just look at, let's say, the average of 1% per year, or 1% a day for a year, 1% a month for, let's get real optimistic. Let's say 1% a day for a year, which is very, very good, which is crazy actually. The compound of that is phenomenal, right? Now, if you could just do 1% every 3 or 4 days, right, for X amount of time, you can make whatever you want, and then you can actually start scaling down and only trading in certain times, only trading certain times of the year that you really want, certain days of the week. Instead of trading Monday through Friday, you trade Tuesday through Thursday. I typically avoid Fridays now. I typically just don't go in the market on Fridays. All right, but you can buy back your freedom. Anyways, good luck on y'all's journeys, man. It's definitely worth it. It's definitely worth it, but most of the work is definitely on yourself versus the actual market strategy. All right, but let's end this with a prayer, and I'll let y'all go. Okay. All right, Heavenly Father, continue to remind us that the fulfillment and the love and the worthiness and the wisdom and the connection that we are looking for outside of us is always within us and ready to be tapped in at any moment. I pray for anyone who's going through heartbreak, who's going through loss, that you can provide them with the peace that only you can provide, but also remind them that that peace they are looking for is always within them. Oh, cool. Right, y'all. See you all as divine, as worthy, as beautiful, right? As gods, as goddesses, as in alignment with everything that you want. If you do not feel that way, it's cool, because I see you as that way anyway. So I know that it must be true. I know it must be true. Right? Y'all have a blessed evening. I appreciate you as well. And until next time, God willing, peace.